Did you ever have a game growing up that you always remembered seeing on the shelf, but never knew exactly how it ended up in your collection? Well, I sure did, and that mysterious cartridge was Golf for the NES. Golf always seemed to turn up when searching for an NES game to play, and I would occasionally load it into my console to give it another try. But Golf would ultimately leave me with more questions than answers, like wondering if that was actually Mario on the box, or my 4-year-old brain struggling to grasp the concept of choosing a 3-iron versus a pitching wedge. Little did I know that Golf would become one of the top 10 best-selling NES games of all time, with a budding trio of iconic Nintendo minds at the heart of its creation. And while on this journey of researching all the trivia and facts crucial to Golf's development, my dad was able to provide his own insight as to how and why Golf found its way into our home. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of you have a similar story as well. And I can't wait to share all the secrets, history, and memories with you in today's video. So let's get started. And if this is your first time here at the channel, my name is Tyler, and if you love gaming from all generations like we do here at G3, then consider hitting that subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss anything. Golf's story begins in Japan in the early 1980s. Shortly after the release of the Nintendo Famicom in July of 1983. With only 3 titles available when the console launched, Nintendo desperately needed to increase its gaming library to ensure the Famicom remained fresh and in demand. Given his incredible success with Nintendo arcade games, it's no surprise that the company tasked Shigeru Miyamoto with leading the charge of character and game design for these new Famicom titles. We know that Miyamoto considers simplicity key to game design, and since he and his team had to divide their efforts to produce these games rapidly, it was a wise decision for Miyamoto to create a collection of sports titles due to their mainstream appeal. So the team quickly went to work on baseball, tennis, and of course golf. But Miyamoto wasn't as personally invested in Golf's development, and instead focused his creative energies toward the baseball game. Kenji Miki was the driving force behind Golf's creation, and his influence extends well beyond the design of its 18-hole course. Miki implemented many concepts that have since become staples needed to control a successful golf game. These include third-person behind the golfer and bird's-eye views to direct your shot, arrows to demonstrate the slope of the green, but the most influential is the 3-point or 3-tap meter located beneath the golfer to control the backswing, power, and accuracy, although Golf's version is a little less forgiving than today's standards. Now, while Golf may look simplistic to those of us not familiar with the development process, programming this game was quite the challenge. Nintendo presented their design to multiple software companies, who said it was impossible to fit an 18-hole golf title on a 24-kilobyte cartridge. But an ambitious young programmer at HAL Laboratories named Satoru Iwata, who was now in Nintendo's good graces after his key involvement in developing Joust and Pinball for the Famicom, believed he was up to that challenge. Iwata admitted he was rather reckless in saying that he could make it work, yet he managed to develop his own compression routine to fit all 18 holes on the limited cartridge memory, and he would become quite the problem solver for Nintendo in future titles, such as introducing raster scrolling on the Famicom in F1 Race. In a 1999 interview for Used Games magazine, Iwata reflected on his experiences during the early Famicom era. He fondly recalled how he enjoyed the less structured approach to game development, as he and his colleagues were allowed to work on multiple projects at once. Nintendo would provide general outlines for the games they needed, allowing programmers much more creative freedom as to what would be included in the final product of each game. These ideal working conditions and synergistic efforts of Miki, Iwata, and Miyamoto culminated with the release of Golf for the Famicom on May 1, 1984, with over 2.4 million copies sold in Japan, making Golf a no-brainer choice to include as a launch title for the NES, when it debuted in North America on October 18, 1985. Golf was definitely a hit in North America, selling over 4 million copies and becoming the 10th best-selling NES game of all time, just behind Excitebike. And a recent discussion with my dad revealed exactly why I have Golf in my collection. and it answered many questions concerning my early NES days because those are a little hazy for me to recall. So it was winter of 1986, and my dad said he and Mom were able to find the Control Deck NES that had Super Mario Bros. Bundled with the console. But there was another game that caught his eye that day, and he purchased it because it was an activity that he could relate to and that he and I could play together. And of course, that game was golf. And it totally checks out that Super Mario Bros. And golf were my first two NES titles, because they are the only two cartridges in my collection that have my name written on them with a green Sharpie, in my mom's handwriting. So these two games will always be prized possessions in my collection. I do think the dad factor may be an important element as to why so many copies were sold. I mean, did any of you have golf growing up primarily because of your dad? Let me know in the comments. Even though NES Golf's gameplay is about as basic as it gets, it still managed to convey that Nintendo charm to me as a kid, despite me having no clue how to play a real round of golf. I know this may sound strange, but I always thought the designs for the first few holes were more like an ink blot test. For instance, I thought the first hole looked like a snowman, the second resembled an Amazon creature or some sort of monster, hole 3 looked like Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs, and the fifth hole reminded me of a space helmet. I can still hear the whimsical sounds of the flight of the golf ball and those annoying out-of-bounds tones that seem to blast through the TV speakers way more often than they should. But obviously the main element that kept my attention was golf's amazing soundtrack. Just take a listen. I mean, no music? Really? All kidding aside, there's no doubt the thought that I could play golf as Mario appealed to me more than any other element in the game. And while Golf's box or instruction manual do not specifically name Mario as the golfer, there have been a few official Nintendo interviews and publications that are somewhat contradictory in revealing his true identity. The Mario Mania Nintendo Player's Guide documents the history of Mario and his games from 1981 to 1991. Page 9 displays his cameos, calling Mario a duffer extraordinaire in Nintendo's Golf while sporting a white shirt and blue pants like Player 1. But I don't think that this golfer is Mario, because we know there are two different golfers available in the NES title, with player number 2 wearing a red shirt and black pants as shown on the cartridge and box art. And I believe a 2008 Japanese title for the Nintendo Wii named Captain Rainbow helps confirm my theory as to Player 1's identity. Captain Rainbow centers around a yo-yo slinging superhero on a magical quest who ends up on an island with a host of misfit Nintendo characters in need of help, like Birdo and a now morbidly obese Little Mac. Captain Rainbow also encounters a disheveled man with a mustache and tattered blue pants who needs your assistance in finding his golf club, and his name is Osan. And Satoru Iwata confirmed that Osan was one of the early names for Jumpman in Donkey Kong, who we all know would eventually become Mario. So based on my research, I feel that Player 1 in the blue and white is Osan, and Player 2 in the red and black is Mario. Let me know if you agree in the comments. One odd bit of trivia is that Nintendo released an additional Japanese version of Golf on the Famicom Disk System in February 1986. But even though the floppy disks provided additional storage capable of producing elements available in the Versus Arcade version of Golf that Nintendo released in October 1984, they changed nothing about the game. And it really was a shame because the arcade title had additional holes, special character reaction animations, but most importantly, music. Nintendo's Golf legacy will forever be tied with the team at HAL Laboratories and most notably Satoru Iwata, given how many golf titles they provided for the company. A touching Easter egg was created as a tribute to Iwata in 2017 for the Nintendo Switch following his untimely death in 2015. This Amamori was only available on July 11th, which is the anniversary of Iwata's death, and you must hold the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons in your hands while you perform his directly to you hand gesture to unlock a playable hidden version of Golf on the Switch. But don't waste your time attempting this today. because a December 2017 system update removed this wonderful secret. But rest assured that both NES Golf and Iwata's contributions to the golf genre will forever remain. Special shout out to Master Search for finding Mullet Boy first in our last World Championship Wrestling Secrets and History video. And as always, a special thank you to each of our wonderful Patreon supporters. Till next time, guys, G3 out.